lights go out, it'll be the start of race 2 in the Britannic Cup. Bit of a jump there from number 7 on the third row of the grid. Looked like Ogden made a good start from the front row from pole position. Down in towards turn 1 though, it looks like Seabright's trying to get down the inside, but Ogden sweeps across him to keep that lead through turn 1. You can see as the riders now bring their way through the rest of the opening sectors of the lap. As I said, it looked like a jump maybe from Charlie Atkins on that number 7. He's down into second spot now, down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. This is a section that really can get quite congested here for the riders. Can they get through it cleanly here on lap 1? Looks like the field has gotten through, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty good there, pretty good. Not too crazy off the start, but like you said, we'll have to wait and see if that was a jump start from number 7, Charlie Atkins. But almost a complete replay of yesterday off the start there. Looked like Seabright had nailed it that little bit better initially, but actually it's Ogden who gets the whole shot, so to speak.
Yeah, we've seen Ogden yesterday really carry a lot of corner speed through different sections, using it to good effect here on the opening lap of the race. It looks like Atkins trying to get down the inside into second spot, but Seabright able to hold on to that. You can see as the field comes through Luffield and into Woodcut that the number 4 of Scott Ogden has been able to open up a bit of a lead, just seeing that there is a jump start penalty for the number 7. That's Charlie Atkins. Looked like he jumped from that third row of the grid, and for Atkins, sorry, 5th on the grid. And for Atkins now trying to get down the inside into turn 1, but keep an eye on that number 7 machine because he's already been given that penalty for a jump start.
Yeah, hopefully he'll see that and come in fairly quickly. Also, a bit of a nightmare for those guys around him if he isn't aware and they are really racing close and he gets involved in a fight that he won't really be in once he's taken that ride through. Can be a bit awkward for those guys, but at the moment looks like it's still pretty close to the front, although Ogden obviously immediately pulling the pin there off the line. Yeah,
Ogden doing well just to open up a bit of a gap. Keep an eye out for the number 7, just in that 5th spot on the grid, makes that jump very early, so clear penalty there for race direction to hand out for Charlie Atkins. He's going to have to come into the pits to take that ride through penalty. As you can see at the moment though, he's still up there in 4th position. Hart's been able to get down the inside into Brooklands on him, so Brian Hart on that number 9 machine finished on the podium yesterday, and he's now making quicker progress today than he made yesterday. He really had to fight through the field yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. There were a few guys yesterday who immediately sort of leapt up through the order. Cameron Horseman would be one of them. But he's in this front group now, but not quite made quite the same progress as he did yesterday. But it looks like Seabright's taken over at the front now, and Brian Hart, yeah, getting very busy in the early stages today.
Yeah, Seabright able to take that lead from Ogden, just using that drive and using the slipstream across the line to be able to get himself through. You can see the 7 and Charlie Atkins goes 4th into 2nd. As we said though, Atkins on the number 7, he's got a time penalty coming, or a ride through penalty coming for that jump start. So Atkins now, he's just in the middle of a race that he's not actually there, and as you said, Fran, it can be big issue for the riders around him if there is a rider about to be given a penalty that's not really aware of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's when you have fast sliders who are getting lapped because they've had some sort of issue before, and riders who aren't aware yet that they've got to take a penalty. You just got to watch nervously and be like, please don't get too involved, don't take too many risks. But yeah, the big example that I'm thinking of there for some reason, oh, is he going around the
just taking that long lap penalty there for the number 7 of
I think he might have done a bit of a Maverick Vinales there. I think it's a ride through he's got to do, not the long lap.
Yeah, it's a ride through penalty for jump start, but just trying to do what he can just to see if he's able to get out of it. But for the number 7, he's still going to have to take that penalty. You can see on the pit board there, it is saying that there is the ride through penalty for the number 7 to Charlie Atkins. So Atkins just taking the long lap for no real reason there, but we'll see if he's able to see the pit board that's set for him to come through for that ride through penalty. Shame for Atkins because he has looked really strong here in the opening couple of laps.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like you said, Maverick Vinales did that twice at Kota last time out, so it can happen to the very, very best of riders. But unfortunate for him, obviously that loses him that little bit more time before he then has to do a ride through as well. So we'll see what happens as the situation develops and see if hopefully he'll head in for a ride through soon. But at the front, we've got Brian Hart now, who's taken over in the lead. So yeah, definitely seeing a bit of a different tactic from him today, and Fenton Seabright right in there at the moment.
Yeah, for Brian Hart, he finished 5th in the championship last year, returning to the class for this season, and definitely put those lessons to good effect last season, or yesterday in race 1. And now doing that as well here in race 2, just to get himself to the front of the field. But Seabright once again looking really strong in that run through Woodcut. Is he going to be able to get down the inside into turn 1 at Copse? He does make that move nice and clean. But for Scott Ogden, the pole setter, the early race leader, Fran, he's just starting to yo-yo down that field.
Yeah, just a little bit, but I do love that camera angle when they're coming through there, because you can't actually tell if there's an overtake happen. Oh, it's getting pretty feisty already. Not quite the same level of frantic as yesterday, though, yeah?
You can see with Rhys Irwin, though, he's pretty clear that he wants to make sure he's able to get to the front. Irwin finished 5th in yesterday's race, and after being a top 10 runner at times last season, he really wants to make that big step forward here in 2019.
Yeah, definitely. You can see 5 abreast there coming down here. Who is the latest on the brakes and can get it stopped? getting all pretty crazy out there now, but Seabright definitely means business today. You can see he's got to the front now, as he seemed to be very eager to do in the early stages of the race yesterday as well. Definitely wasn't shy of leading. But yeah, some familiar names in that top sort of 6, 7, 8 group at the moment. But Scott Upton and Cameron Horseman, who'd been leading that yesterday, at the moment just that little bit further back.
Then Charlie Atkins now just taking that right through penalty. I'm sure we're going to see a shake of the head from Atkins as he comes down through pit lane. He'll be disappointed with himself, and as you can see, pretty clear to see there. But for Charlie Atkins, he had managed to get himself into that leading group. He had managed to show that he's going to be a contender through this season, so we'll keep an eye on him for the rest of the year. But at the front of the field, it's Charlie Farrar that's got himself into the lead on the number 19. But once again, Rhys Irwin just getting down the inside through that section leading on to the Wellington Straight. That really is where he's been very strong so far. So keep an eye out for the 15 to try and make some more moves through that section of the lap. That's the best overtaking opportunity for him.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, he made some big impressions yesterday, as did Scott Swan, who's currently down in 11th, maybe a little bit surprising. But it was a little bit later in the day yesterday when he really started to make an impression and started slicing his way through to the front. So I'll have to keep a bit of an eye on him. But yeah, at the moment, there's a few names a little bit further down than maybe we were expecting, like Elliot Pinson, who yesterday, like you said, had that crash out of the front group. So have to keep an eye on them. But at the moment, there's definitely no risk of anyone breaking away, it would seem.
Yeah, Swan's the last rider in this lead group, so the opening laps of this race, seeing the top 11 all in one big train here coming through Copse, but there's a gap behind them then to the likes of Elliot Pinson on the number 3 machine. So the race does look like it's going to be fought out with these 11 riders at the front of the field, and you can see with Irwin trying to get down the inside into the Wellington Straight. Good move there from Irwin. A lot cleaner today than what we saw yesterday at times in this leading group, but for Rhys Irwin just able to pick off riders and on the last couple of laps round just to make good progress.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, we've got this big sort of freight train at the front in classic style for these little bikes, but yeah, those guys are largely the veterans, and then the rookies start from 13th down, and again it's Torrin Collins who's leading that fight at the moment. So there's a couple of them close together, and then there seem to be some good little battles that throughout the field in the British Talent Cup this season. A few guys with a quite similar pace, and definitely learning some racecraft with some of the gaps we saw over the line yesterday.
Yeah, we're only at 1/4 race distance now, and already all these riders at the front, they are chopping and changing with one another. They're all trying to make moves. You can see Irwin on the 15 trying to get down the inside, but they're all trying to make moves now, and it's very early in the race to be getting aggressive, trying to make moves, because the one thing about it is, if you try and be a little bit too aggressive, all the riders around you, they're just going to keep that in mind for the end of the race. That's what we see usually in the Talent Cups. It's all about trying to survive the early 2/3 of the race, and then in that final third of the race, make sure you're in a position to try and attack.
Yeah, definitely. As long as you're close enough to that group and give yourself enough time nearer the end of the race to make your way through it, there's really nothing to be gained unless you can break away at the front and set your own pace and you know, completely stay away from the drama. There's not much to be gained chopping up everyone around you for 4th or 5th. So yeah, we'll have to see if they do calm down that a little bit, but at the moment definitely a good fight at the front.
Yeah, it's hard to break away here at Silverstone on this layout. Basically a big triangle here at Silverstone with 3 long straights and a couple of corners just linking them together. So with a 1-minute lap for all these riders in the lead group, if you don't have a slipstream, you're always going to be dropped from the rest of the pack.
So again, that angle there, Fenton Seabright getting the better of them that time around. I absolutely love it, because you really can't tell who's ahead until they tip in.
Yeah, and the one thing is, once they tip into turn 1, it does really lend itself all the way down in towards this section of the track where you can see the moves being made. Irwin trying to go around the outside into Beckett's, and now he's going to try and run all the way around the outside of the 19 of Charlie Farrar as well. So 4th to 2nd there for Rhys Irwin. Really good moving from the Derry man to be able to get himself through into 2nd spot there. But all this fighting, Fran, all we're seeing is Seabright continuing to lead for long periods. We saw him do this yesterday when he led 17 laps, and he's just been able to consistently keep himself away at the front of the field.
Seabright, yeah, staying free of the drama, definitely at the head of this race now. Just not enough gap to, you know, mean too much, but just enough to keep him out of harm's way from those slightly banzai attacks we've been seeing when they're trying to go 3 abreast into corners. But yeah, I think it should be an interesting one now. So far, we're, you know, sort of just over 1/3 the way through this race. So far, we've got some of the guys who yesterday maybe had just fallen away a little bit and then got back into it due to the fight, you know, in that front group, slowing them down a bit. At the moment, it seems like maybe they're a little bit able to stay on the pace better than yesterday.
Yeah, and for all these riders, of course, sorry, I said that Seabright trying to the attack there as well down in towards turn 1. That's a really brave move through Maggots and Beckett.
Is brave the word?
We'll go with it for now. But Seabright, of course, actually he crashed out of yesterday's race. I was thinking of Horseman that was leading for long periods yesterday. But for Seabright in this race at the front, just look at this attack though, all the way down from Horseman on that 23 machine, third to first down the outside into Maggots and Beckett's. Really good move there from Horseman to hit the front for the first time in this race.
To quote our good friend Gregory Haynes, 2 for 1, and you don't get that at Sainsbury's. Great move from Horseman there to get back into the lead, and it'd be interesting to see if he does do the same as he did yesterday and just try and stay ahead of the field. Will we have a faller?
And it looks like it's down at the early stages of the lap. We'll see if we can. It's one of the Harts.
Brian Hart, yeah. Bit of a heartbreaker for him then.
And for Hart, you can see he's down and out at the last corner. You can see the long lap there for Luffield. So we're going to catch a replay now of Hart just in the middle of this pack, and just loses that front end coming through Luffield. And a bit lucky that we don't have a repeat of what we saw yesterday with Seabright as well, Fran, because very easy through that section just to have a crash like that and collect a couple of other riders. So for Brian Hart now, he's just going to try and see if he's able to get restarted in this race, but out of contention now for Hart. And disappointment there for Brian, because yesterday, of course, he was able to claim 20 points for finishing in second spot. So Brian Hart out of this race, and suddenly all those leaders, we're down to 10 now in that leading group.
It's like a bit of a evil countdown just watching them. But yeah, Brian Hart there, if there is such a thing as an ideal crash, it is one where you miraculously slide through a gap, and then obviously he's completely unhurt, really low speed there, but just a bit of a heartbreaker, because like you said, yeah, he's second in the championship going into this. Obviously the standings based on the finishing positions in race 1, so yeah, might leave himself a little bit more work to do next time out after that.
Yeah, of course, if you think back to last year, though, Fran, at the opening rounds of the year, Rory Skinner as well also struggled a little bit in the opening rounds, came good in the middle of the season. So for Hart, he's been able to get himself into that front group in both races this weekend. He's been able to be fast all the way through the weekend, so keep an eye out for him for the rest of the British Talent Cup season. But as you can see, in the lead group, more changes down the order there. Rhys Irwin just making that move once again down in towards Beckett's. That's where he's been able to be really strong and try and make his moves. But at the front of the field, Horseman now out in front, and he's just doing what he can, Fran, just to try and open up a little bit of a gap between himself and the number 19 of Charlie Farrow.
Yeah, it looks like he's pulled the pin a little bit there at the front, and yeah, this group now a little bit more spaced out than it was a few minutes ago when they were really bunched up and all squabbling over that. But Horseman, so obviously trying to do the same as yesterday, but it is the calmest place to be a lot of the time in the lead of these races, so there's no one trying to, can't really get quite close enough to attack him constantly, and not getting caught up in those crazy moves into some of these corners here.
Yeah, Horseman on the 23, of course, finished in the podium spots yesterday in third, and he'll be out to try and go a little bit better than that today. But it was such a close battle in yesterday's race, Fran, with only a couple of tenths of a second between all those leading riders, that for any of these riders in that lead group, they're all going to feel that they've got an opportunity to really try and get themselves to the front. You can see Horseman under a little bit of attack there from Charlie Farrar down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. Farrar, of course, on the 19, the oldest rider in the field. And we saw yesterday he was able to get himself into those top 3, top 4 spots all the way through that race, eventually finished in 4th.
Yeah, definitely one of those who's taken a big step forward from last year, and there you see, yeah, into the lead for Farrar. So yeah, good stuff from him. And yeah, it's so far pretty much similar to yesterday, I'd say, in a lot of ways, but I'm quite interested that Horseman went for the same tactic despite the fact that he didn't take the win yesterday.
Yeah, for Horseman yesterday, leading all those laps now, trying to just make sure he's always in those leading positions, just to try as much as anything else to stay out of trouble in these early stages of the race. You can see as they come across 5 abreast across the line, it's very easy just to lose your track position in these races, so you want to make sure that you're always able to keep yourself into those leading couple of positions, just to give yourself that big margin for error as we move into the second half of the race.
Yeah, exactly. So like we said before, this leading group now is the top 10 pretty much, 1.4 seconds covering the top 10. There are a few tenths in between a few of them every now and then. Obviously you get the concertina effect, hugely changing the timing screen at times. But yeah, so again, the veterans really, you know, kind of out the blocks first so far this season. But Elliot Pinson now has just dropped off the leading 10. But yeah, he's still got quite a lot of breathing space before any of the rookies really snapping at his heels.
Yeah, we saw Charlie Atkins setting fastest laps of the race the last couple of laps. Actually, at the moment, the fastest rider on the track is actually Nixon in the middle of this group as well on the number 2 machine, Jake Nixon. And he's trying to make sure he's able to get himself through this pack. We haven't really seen him make too many moves yet, but he's got the speed in this pack right now. So keep an eye out for the number 2 machine just at the back of that group in front of Charlie Swan.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Charlie Atkins, update on him. He has made a few positions up, so a good recovery ride at the moment. And at least, you know, we'll have to see how it is by the end of the race. But it looks like he's managed to tag on to the back of a group there, so he should be able to make a few more positions up as well.
You can see there with Hart on the number 10 machine. Joe Hart just getting down the inside from, I think it was 5th into 2nd spot on the number 10. So all these riders now, Fran, we're into the second half of the race. They all look like they're trying to just get their elbows out a little bit more. They want to assert themselves, and they want to be able to try and get themselves to the front of the pack. That's Charlie Atkins, fastest rider on the track for a couple of laps in a row. But for Charlie Atkins, after that ride through penalty, he's got the red mist down, but it's all for nothing right now. He's down outside the points in 17th spot. But for Atkins, he's only got a couple of seconds to the riders in front of him, Elliot Pinson, and maybe he'll be able to get himself into those points-paying positions by the end of this race.
Yeah, it does actually look, I think Pinson has entered the pits is what it's showing on our timing screen. So yeah, that would also make sense with that lap time. It would be a little bit extreme to be sort of 14 seconds quicker. But yeah, so obviously some sort of issue for Elliot Pinson there, so that's a shame. Obviously no points in either of these first two races here, despite having some fairly good pace at times, so he must have some sort of problem that we've not seen on screen.
Yeah, shame for Pinson. He was running inside the top 10 all the way through practice and qualifying as well. You can see in this top 10 though, Fran, lots of riders trying to make their moves now. We're just coming down in towards the final third of the race. This is really where typically in a Talent Cup race you tend to start to see the moves being made. You tend to start to see riders being more and more aggressive into the final third of the race into those last 10 minutes. Yeah,
definitely. And we can see a familiar name and number at the front as well, staying out of that trouble. So it'd be interesting to see what Horseman can do and whether he can just manage to stay ahead of this fight a little bit longer. But yeah, now you can see, you know, Seabright falling down in this group a little bit, a few positions further back than he was. And Scott Ogden has come back up the order a little bit, so fought his way through to the front a bit more. I think that's Elliot Pinson, so not sure exactly what the issue was there.
Yeah, you can see Pinson just down there with the Talent Cup team, just to explain what sort of happened to him. It looked like he was holding his shoulder as well, so hopefully nothing.
He did a little bit, yeah.
He did have that crash yesterday, so maybe just the ill effects of that. So Elliot Pinson out of this race anyway, but at the front of the field you can see all these riders now trying to just make sure they're able to get themselves into the right positions, Fran, because in a Talent Cup race you can actually break away. We saw Jerry Salem do it a few times in the Asian Talent Cup. You can see there for Elliot Pinson though, the disappointment for him, and it looks like his ladder's pretty dusty, so maybe another crash in this.
I think that's Brian Hart. I'm not sure. The helmets are very, very hard here because there are a few different designs, but they're all shark, and then there's repeated ones of the same. So a bit of a nightmare, and without being able to see the name on there and with the visor down, I think it was Brian Hart though after his crash, so a bit of a broken heart for him down in pit lane.
Yeah, proper heartbreaker there for Brian Hart, but for Hart, he's been in the podium spots in the past in the British Talent Cup, and no doubt he'll be able to get himself back up there whenever we return to Donington Park in a few weeks' time for round 2. But for the riders at the front of the field now, Fran, who are the ones that you're looking out for that's been able to try and make sure they're able to get themselves into the right spots?
Well, I think at the moment Horseman Ogden obviously doing everything they can, and Riso in again, not afraid of making some slightly more interesting moves, but Fenton Seabright should be an interesting one as well. I'm eager to see what he's going to be like at the end of the race when it does come down to sort of tactics and last lap manoeuvres. But at the moment there's no real massive rush to get to the front of this group, but they definitely need to make sure they you know, you have to be in it to have a chance of winning it, so a little bit calmer, you know, and not too many crazy moves.
Yeah, this is when you start to have to try and push a little bit harder to make sure you can get to the front, because once you're into the final 10 laps here, it's such a short lap at Silverstone that there's only a handful of overtaking opportunities, so you need to make sure that you're always able to try and pick off those riders in front of you. So if you're Fenton Seabright on the number 22 machine, had that crash yesterday, he wants to be able to make sure that he can score some decent points today. So if you're on that 22, you've got to start making that progress now in the next couple of laps, just to make sure you're always in touch with the leaders. You can see Ogden on the number 4 gets down the inside into Copps. Good move down in towards turn 1 there from Scott Ogden to take this lead. And we saw this in yesterday's race, Fran, that Ogden always just tried to pick off the riders around him when the opportunities present themselves at the end of the race. Rhys Irwin now trying to get down the inside in towards the Maggots and Beckett's complex. And a nice clean move there from Irwin.
Yeah, definitely, and Ogden is a good example exactly of what you were saying. Just been a little bit further back in that group and biding his time, and now fought his way right through to the front again to really make a charge at the win again to try and do the double. But yeah, we'll have to see what the likes of Seabright can do to maybe make a little bit more progress through this group. But at the moment, they're all still pretty much in contention with some very small gaps there.
Yeah, we never actually saw a double last season in the British Talent Cup. Rory Skinner might have won 4 out of the 10 races, but he never actually did the double at any race. Are we going to see a bit of history being made by Scott Ogden on the number 4 machine today? But this is the second group. You can see Charlie Atkins, he's making his progress now, Fran, and he's certainly been really fast all the way through this race on the number 7. Just unfortunate for him that he was a bit too fast off the line, had that jump start, and has had to try and recover through the pack now. With the number 7 into the points, and it looks like he's going to have the opportunity to try and get to the front of this group and maybe up as high as into 11th spot by the end of this race. Be a good recovery ride from Atkins if he can do that.
Yeah, definitely, and at least that's something to take home, despite obviously the disappointment of a jump start. Showing he is able to do that and come back so strongly is a real positive for him. And yeah, it's also positive for him, obviously, that quite a few guys ahead of him are in this big group, so he just arrives and then slices his way through it and gains quite a few positions in a fairly short amount of time.
Yeah, you can see him make the move there on Oisin Jones on the number 5 machine. Jones, of course, his brother, former Moto Star champion and a Red Bull Rookies rider, so Jones on the first step for his journey towards hopefully that road to MotoGP, like all these riders are aiming for. Ogden out in front though, still on the number 4 machine, and you can see just starting to come under pressure once again from these riders. But are we going to start to see, Fran, a little bit of a split develop in that leading group, or will everyone be able to stay with one another?
Well, it's fairly impressive so far that we really do have these guys really close together. At the moment, the top 7 within 6/10, so they're very close. But there's only another few back to the likes of Harvey Claridge, Scott Swan and Jamie Davis just behind them, the last 3 of the veterans who've been near the front this whole time. So yeah, it could be an interesting one, but I wouldn't be too surprised if a few of these guys now, that real front group, can start to edge away a little bit. Yeah,
Horsman got himself to the front once again. Is Ogden going to try and make the move down in towards Brooklands? Looks like he's not going to be able to do that. He's actually going to come under attack from Joe Hart down in towards Brooklands. So Hart on the number 10 machine moves himself up into 2nd spot. Horsman, really hard not to be impressed by him in this race though, Fran. He's been able just like what we saw yesterday, get himself to the front, lead more laps than anyone else, and he looked comfortable once he gets to the front.
Yeah, definitely. He looks very comfortable, and yeah, it's been an impressive weekend for him, regardless of what happened from this point. Definitely very impressive weekend from him. Had some good finishes last year as well, but one of those who's made impressive progress, but also one you would have expected it from a little bit, with some good flashes of pace last season. So that's good to see from him. But yeah, it's getting pretty close now between those few at the front.
Yeah, Horsman, of course, last season had a couple of tops and 4 finishes at the Grand Prix tracks at Valencia and also in Assen. So he's got that bit of experience in some of the bigger tracks. Went well at the end of last season, being able to carry that momentum into this season. But you can see momentum, the key word through this section of the track, Fran. You've got to make sure that you're able to carry that drive down in towards Brooklands. Are you going to be close enough to try and make a move? The leading 3 riders all trying to attack one another here and try and break away, and it looks like Joe Hart trying to get down the inside to take the lead there. And Horsman relegated down to 2nd spot. Ogden still in 3rd. Rhys Irwin still up there in 4th spot. All these riders, Fran, anytime there's a little bit of a gap starts to develop, it really does get gobbled up once you come down that straight.
Yeah, it really does, incredibly quickly. And yeah, Jack Hart doesn't seem to really need to be close enough. He just decides that he's going to do it and goes for it. So some good moves from him in this race. And yeah, good to see him up at the front and find it out after, like you said, that front row start and great pace all weekend. So that's good stuff. But yeah, Scott Ogden seems perfectly content at the moment to just sit there and be in the right position for this stage in the race. So it'll be pretty interesting, I think, come the end of it, whether Ogden really will go full attack mode earlier or leave it a little bit later and pounce on that final lap.
Yeah, Jack Hart on that number 10 machine, of course. He retired from yesterday's race in that crash with Pinson and also with Seabright. So now just trying to do what he can to try and make sure he's able to come away from today with a podium and some decent points, because on that number 10 machine, he's been fast all the way through this weekend. We saw on the last lap he tried to make the move down in towards Brooklands there on Horsman, not quite able to pull it off this lap. But all about trying to just rehearse your moves, trying to make sure that you're able to learn what you have to be able to do on the final couple of laps, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. And as well, obviously, like we saw yesterday, it was Brian Hart, sadly no longer in this race after that crash, who picked the pocket perfectly of Cameron Horsman. You've got to be aware of that as well. It's not just about what moves you're going to make. You've got to be aware of the guys behind about to attack you as well. But it looks like Charlie Atkins update. looks like he has got as far as he's going to get. And so the gap ahead of him now about 15 seconds. So 11th position after a ride through and doing that long lap penalty erroneously. That's a pretty good day's work despite the disappointment. He showed some good pace, and that's some good progress for him.
Yeah, not bad from Charlie Atkins to get himself up into 11th, but you can see up into the lead once again. We've had another change of the lead horseman once again, just able to attack, try and make his moves down in towards Maggots and Beckett's on this lap. You can see for Ogden, he's always strong on the run down in towards Brooklands, but Hart really good on the brakes down in towards the left-hander. Is he going to be able to try and once again try and slice down the inside of horseman? Not quite close enough there on this lap from Hart, but you can see that's where he seems to be adamant, Fran, that he's going to try and set up his moves down in towards that section.
Yeah, definitely. But of course, after trying that a few times, some successfully, some not quite, obviously those guys around him will be aware of that come the final lap as well.
Yeah, we've only got 4 laps to go for these riders, so a short lap here at Silverstone, which means there's only a handful of overtaking opportunities left in this race for these riders. So if you're anywhere down that field, if you're the likes of Seabright on the 22, Irwin on the 15, you've got to try and make your moves in these early stages.
Now is the time, I think, for the likes of Seabright certainly to start trying to make some progress, but over the line last time seemed to have actually lost a position. I'm not sure, we had a double graphic switch. So they're obviously very, very close together that time around, but yeah, it's all getting pretty tasty up at the front now, but still horsemen in that lead.
And this is when the elbows really do start to come out for all these riders. This is when you try and make sure you're able to make your moves. This is when you get that little bit more aggressive. You can see Ogden, he did it at this stage in yesterday's race down in towards Brooklands in the final couple of laps. That's when he started to really come good. And for all these riders, they'll know that that really has to be the blueprint that you have to follow, because horseman, we saw yesterday, he led 17 in the 28 laps. He's led the vast majority of this race as well. You can see there's another crash down there, and that looks like it's
William Lathrop, and I'm not sure if the other person didn't quite get a good look at that, but I think we saw in the graphics them going down the order, so not quite sure. Let's see if we'll get a replay of that. I imagine possibly after the race or in the highlights. Yeah,
for all these riders at the front, it does just give them that reminder as well that it's easy to get yourself caught out with another rider. You can see there, it looked like it was
carbon copy almost.
Exactly, the exact same as what we saw in yesterday's race. It looked like it could have been Oisin Jones down the inside, and he's just taken out Lathrop there as well. So for both those riders, just a reminder for everyone else just how easy it is to get caught out by another rider's accident with 2.5 laps to go at the front of the field. Ogden trying to get down the inside into Brooklands here on horseman. It is starting to spread out a little bit at the front of the field. Ogden on the number 4 though, he bails out of that pretty early. He's just using that as a bit of a rehearsal for the next couple of laps, but you can see behind them it's still the number 10 of Jack Hart that's up there in 3rd spot. Charlie Farrar, the oldest rider in the field, and the Sunderland rider, he's up there in 4th position, just in front of Nixon, who's had good pace all the way through this race, slowly and steadily just been picking off riders, Fran.
Yeah, definitely, and I wonder if Ogden is going to start thinking about maybe a different place to make a move on horseman, because he's been so solid down into there. It looks like it'll be a very mammoth task to get past him, but yeah, still another lap to go after this one. We'll have to see how it plays out on that final lap.
Yeah, Hart with a good move down in towards Cops there on the number 10 machine on Ogden, but this is down in towards the favourite overtaking opportunity for all these riders in the British Talent Cup. Down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. If you take that tight line like you're seeing the number 10 of Hart do, you leave yourself open for attack from Ogden down in towards Brooklands. Ogden knows with a lap and a half to go that he really needs to try and get himself through into 2nd spot now to see then if he's able to set up any moves on horseman on the final lap. But Jack Hart really strong down in towards Brooklands. Hart on the number 10 gets down the inside. Is he going to be able to take the lead? Looks like he's not quite able to. Horseman sweeps across the outside of him. So good riding there from horseman. We've seen him all the way through this race, Fran, defending really well through that section.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely solid through there. And like you say, Ogden now is aware that time's running out a little bit, and you definitely don't want to have any more than 2 people ahead of you if you're going to try and make an attempt to win this race. So yeah, definitely get into the real crux of it now, but I don't know, I can't choose between these top 3 at the moment. Yeah, Hart's going to try and get down the inside into turn 1 there on horseman. Hart with great run across the line. He made that move last time around as well. Is he going to be able to get his head down and try and open up a little bit of a lead? You can see that it is horseman on the 23 in 2nd spot, trying to go around the outside, down in towards Maggots and Beckett's. He's going to try and take that sweep around the outside to take the lead. Good move there from horseman. You can see all those riders bumping through that section of the track, just where you've got to join from one circuit to the other. Horseman out in front. This is where we saw Ogden on the number 4 take the lead in yesterday's race on the final lap. Hart's really strong on the brakes down in towards Brooklands. 4 abreast down in towards Brooklands, and the number 2 coming down the inside as well. That's Nixon, and you can see there with
It looks like Horseman trying to just run around the outside on the 23 in front of Hart. Horseman doing really well to be able to hold on to this one. But we saw in the end of yesterday's race how easy it was to be able to try and use the drive through this final corner, get a bit of a slipstream and see if we're able to try and drive for the line. It looks like Nixon in third, trying to get himself across into those podium spots, but across the line, Horseman's led all of this race and he's been able to take the 25 points here for the victory. Behind him though, Ogden in second spot and Hart in third once again on the podium there for Jack Hart. Good performance there from the number 10 to be able to still hold on to those podium spots, Fran.
To do that double, you really have to be, head and shoulders above the rest sometimes. And in this field, there's some guys who've really shone this weekend. But a really good group fight again, and some close competition, which is exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, and it's all about trying to learn in this class as well. And we saw Horseman from one day to the other really learn a lot of lessons in yesterday's race. He was able to put them to good use here on the number 23 machine, and he'll be able to walk off with his first British Talent Cup victory. And the step he's taken will be onto the top step there for Cameron Horseman, claiming the victory here from Jack Hart. You can see how close it was across the line, only 0.05 of a second separating Hart from that race victory. Ogden able to back up yesterday's race with another podium. And when we move on to the next round of the championship in Donington Park at the end of May, all those riders, they're certainly going to feel that they've been able to use this brand as the foundations for what you'd imagine will be a championship charge for most of those riders at the front of the field here today.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously Donington, somewhere that we raced at for last year, so the veterans maybe again are going to have a little bit more of an advantage over those rookies, obviously depending on the background of a lot of the rookies. But Donington should be another shake-up, I imagine, in some ways, and should see maybe the likes of Seabright, who I'm quite surprised didn't really manage to make many inroads at the end of that race. Obviously with that experience he had last year, pit lane to podium, could be back in the fight there. Yeah,
Donington of course on the national layout and the May Bank holiday when it's supporting British Superbikes once again, and then the Donington GP layout whenever they're supporting World Superbikes in July. So these riders, they will get a couple of races between now and then with the Moto Star and the Moto 3 Standard Cup here in the British Championship. So lots of these riders doing a bit of double jobbing, but you can see at the front of the field in the championship standings, it's a double top there for Ogden and Horseman. And then a bit of a gap to Charlie Farrar. Of course, Farrar wasn't able to finish on the podium in any of these races, but he was pretty competitive all the way through this weekend. And then the likes of Rhys Irwin as well, showing a lot stronger here in the second year of the British Talent Cup.
Yeah, definitely. So you can see some names on that screen, obviously Seabright and Jack Nixon, who paid the price of not quite getting 2 top finishes, and consistency, like you say, pays off. Even if you've not won or been on the podium, if you've got 2 solid finishes, that's a good start to the year, and it can pay dividends in the standings.
Yeah, you can see the difference in stature between each of these riders. Of course, as I said, you've got a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, and then a 17-year-old race winner, and very different sizes between the riders there on the podium, but very well deserved there for Horseman, who rode a really strong race to be able to get himself to the front of the field throughout that race and be able to claim those 25 points.